Hello.
Greetings.
What's going on? Hello.
Okay, so basically, here again, but had a little bit of time off. Yeah, recovering from being ill, but well enough to have a good chat with my friends.
Wicked.
So, yeah, today we've got Toby Couling and Talliss.
Greetings.
So yeah, hello.
Nice one. Greetings, everyone. How's it going, guys?
Hello.
Yeah, it's
Good
happening.
to be here. Very good to be here.
So, yeah, if you could explain to the people watching what you do, and yeah, I guess how we met.
Okay. Should I? Right.
Yeah,
Well,
go for it, man.
I am Talliss Ites. I am a singer, songwriter, bass guitarist, and producer. I started playing music from a very tender age, like took it serious from about age 13, right up till present, where I'm almost 40 now. I'm a leader of a band called the Ites. Been going 25 years now, since school age. From doing the Ites, I become a session musician, playing with various artists, which led me up to this present time where I'm playing for artists like Natty and got to meet great musicians like Toby. Become a great drum and bass section in our own right.
Yeah. Well
And
said.
great engineers like Lavar. So yeah, here we are.
Yeah, nice one, Talliss. I know you as Jamel, really, but I'll call you
Yeah.
Talliss.
It's cool, anyhow you want, man.
Yeah, my name's Toby. I guess predominantly I'm a drummer, but from drumming kind of came other things that I was fascinated with. One of those being music production and making music, creating music. Not just sitting behind a kit, but sitting behind fun synthesizers and being with different people and trying to make music, whatever that music, just with different people. Yeah, played for lots of different artists and bands over the last pretty much almost 20 years, which is pretty mad. But yeah, ever since I left school when I was 16. So yeah, and like Jamel said, got to meet some wonderful people, and two of them on screen right now.
Cool. So, yeah, I mean, there's a few things that I want to cover today, that I think that you two are particularly well placed to discuss. But yeah, first of all, I think it's always I've got kind of a list of questions, and it's kind of strange. Like I come on, a little while before these kinds of chats, and I'm like, right, let me just delete all the questions and put the questions in for this one. But there's some questions here that are from literally the first one of these talks that I did that seem relevant to everybody that I talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is this: how did you get started?
Jamel?
Yeah.
Me?
Any takers?
You say Toby?
Yeah, all right, I'll go for it. I reckon, how did I get started? I'm assuming that's being a drummer and getting into that. Yeah.
Yeah, just getting started in music in general.
I feel
It
like
seems a strange thing to be doing,
Yeah. Well, I guess probably just a family that was open to things that were, unusual or like open. Yeah, just open to things. And my mum was a pianist. She plays a lot of music. She played a lot of music around the house. And we used to listen to a lot of music around the house. So I guess like getting started being amongst music and that kind of world, and just sitting next to mum. I still do it now. Just sit next to mum on the high register of the piano and just like join in, sing a bit, mess around a little bit, watch what she's doing, probably tap my feet, tap my legs. Sometimes I would sit under the piano with the dogs and listen to mum play the piano. Do you know what I mean? And then pots and pans kind of took hold of me, and chopsticks. And then I started jamming along. And then I think, when I started, when I was at primary school, I kind of, did the violin thing, but it didn't really resonate with me. too much. And then my mum was really wicked and said, look, I know this guy who's a new drum teacher. He lives in the town. Do you want to give it a go? And ever since then, I'd never made a true decision to be a drummer or to be in music, but I've just kind of followed this instinct and this feeling to kind of go with it. And for some reason, whenever I go with it, it always goes to like a musical, creative direction. So yeah, and then that's how I got started, I guess. Just like being in a family that were accepting me making some noise, basically. Yeah. What about you, Jamal?
For me, getting started, very similar. Being in a family home where music was being played like on a daily basis, but not necessarily from instruments, mainly from a sound system perspective. My father's got a very big vinyl collection of old school reggae from like the 60s right through to the 90s. And even when I got to a certain age, like from age 12, I started going to the record shops and buying records. So even before really thinking about approaching music, I always wanted to be a sound system guy. I wanted to be a selector or an MC on the sound system. At age 7, I started playing guitar. I took a few guitar lessons, but by the time I got to like 8, I didn't really take it that serious at the time. And I kind of put it down and just, carried on being a young boy for a few years till about age 13. I decided to pick up the guitar again and realized I couldn't play any chords because I couldn't remember the chords anymore. But I started playing around and I could pick bass lines on it. And then my dad realized I was playing loads of bass lines on the guitar, so he got me a bass guitar. And from then I just, I never had no bass guitar teacher originally, so I would just listen to records that my dad had in the front room, a lot of Bob Marley, a lot of Black Uhuru, and just try and find the notes. I never knew what notes I was playing or what strings were. I just listened to the sound and try and find it. And once I held it, that was me.
Was that like a conversation that you had with your dad, or did he just get it for you?
He saw that I was picking, and he had a friend, which is Curly, who had this bass guitar, which is in the background here, the Weston 1A Thunder. Yeah, basically, Curly had it sitting down, but he wasn't a bass guitarist himself. He just had this bass guitar sitting down. And when he heard that I could play bass on this thing, he was like, let Jamil have it. So that was the beginning of the journey. Yeah, just from having the tool and being able to go for it. Then once I got to school, secondary school, and they had bass guitar lessons in school, that's when I managed to get, like, it just so happened that the bass guitar lessons only lasted 3 weeks before they took away the music funding. But that was enough to show me a chromatic scale, teach me what the notes on the bass guitar was, what strings I'm playing, and teach me a major scale. And that's all the lessons I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
Present day. Yeah.
I love that you've still got the bass from back then.
So good.
Yeah, I should show you guys, man.
That's wicked, Jamal.
I actually had that chat with my mum yesterday.
This one,
because
See that red one? Oh, mate, look at that.
Look at that.
Weston 1A.
I love the fact it's like the closest one for you to pick up as well. Like
Yeah.
it was meant to be. It wasn't stacked behind.
That's right there. Yeah, man. That's the baby. So yeah, that was the start of the journey.
Wicked.
So next question is, what were the obstacles in the beginning? So moving on a bit from sort of why you started playing to more when you had decided that you were going to take it a bit more seriously. I'm guessing with both, I mean, for me, I think I kind of fell into doing music a little bit. But yeah, at the beginning of your career, what do you think were kind of obstacles or challenges that you had?
Jamal?
So
you go first on that?
Go for it, Toby, please.
Okay. Obstacles and challenges. I reckon, to be honest, I would say probably myself, to be honest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just like not being in a place. So when I finished school, I went straight to a music college, and it was like the most exciting thing, and it was brilliant, but it was also very different and quite overwhelming, and like there was a lot of new stuff and new people and a new place. I think kind of like it felt like a new chapter, and I think that I was a bit overwhelmed by that chapter to begin with, and maybe like realized that I was used to like a small town, and then I was in a big city, and then all these questions started appearing in my mind, and you were learning all these things, and people are telling you lots about music, and you're hearing a lot, and you're meeting a lot of people. There's a lot of different people, and there's a lot of people that you look up to, whether they're other peers or people that come to do a masterclass or your teachers or whatever. So there's a lot of information, and I think I probably was a bit overwhelmed and started not truly believing in what I was about, and started maybe becoming slightly maybe my confidence was knocked a little bit at that point. And I think that was a good thing for me to have, because I learned about myself and had to practice lots of things about being just in this world as a person. Do you know what I mean? So like sometimes I would struggle even just picking up the phone and talking to someone about something, you know, like, or going to a shop and like asking to try out some cymbals. I'll never forget that I actually I was so unconfident, and I was worried what they were going to think, all that kind of stuff. And I think that was an obstacle that I had to get through. And I guess I still am trying to get better as a person. But generally, I think that was something that it was an obstacle. But when you can learn about yourself and start developing what things mean, what things are important to you, what things you like, what music you like, what kind of person you are, what kind of friends you want, they're all the kind of things that inform things about your artistic, personality or creativity. I think at that point there, that's a thing that kind of slowed me down a bit. But in the long run, it's meant that I've kind of really carved out my own kind of story and figured out who I am. And I think that's one of the best things, or one of the things I'm trying to still work on a lot, is just being myself and being proud and not letting that hold me back, because I'm the only person that's me in this world, and that's beautiful. And Jamel is the only Jamel in this world, and that's beautiful.
Yes,
and
good.
that was the obstacle, I think. Main one anyway.
Yeah, for me, obstacles musically were probably habits, because I started off self-taught and mainly around even one genre, which was mainly reggae. So my whole teaching even of an understanding of even feel and groove and everything was based around how I approached playing reggae music. And then becoming a session musician and realizing that I had to reproduce something that I didn't originally do. And I almost put myself under pressure, knowing that I had a standard that I didn't want to go below. So it was almost like, if I can't play the record, don't even go for the session. Like, so I would put myself under that pressure constantly, because the record is the template. Because for me as a bass guitarist, the worst thing in a session is to go and play for an artist and they turn around and say, no, my tune don't go like that. If anything, I just want them to feel like, yeah, okay, you've listened to what I do, and yeah, you're understanding. And if anything, we can build on top of that, if anything, and take it further. But once I managed to find formulas of getting around my instrument quickly, even the basic formulas of playing from major to minor positions, but just knowing those simple positions made me be able to adapt to things much quicker. And finding that and identifying it for myself, yeah, that was a great thing, because that was the main obstacle, in the sense of not knowing, because I never really had the original teaching. I've never been to like a school of music to learn my instrument, or even had a real tutor. I said in school we had 3 lessons. That was 3 weeks, and from then it's been me on the road. So yeah, it's just me and God I work it,
it's kind of strange. There's a question in my list that I think is like completely applicable to this that I actually meant to ask 2 chats ago, and never did. But it's this. So, how do you feel that helping other people with their journeys has positively impacted your own? And the reason I want to ask this is because I know that you both do quite a lot of work with the youth, and helping the next generation of musicians come through. And also, I know that you've sessioned on a lot of material for younger artists or up and coming artists, and there's kind of an element of guidance that
Mhm.
people look to you for.
Mhm.
Um, how do you think that has impacted your own work?
I feel that for me, it's a pleasure. You see, coming from being in music from such a young age myself, it was very important to have elders that I did look up to that could encourage me and kind of, you know, keep me active, give me a pathway, give you some experience. So even though me, I see myself as a young person same way, but there's a lot of younger musicians than me who seem to look up to me, and I look up to them because I've seen the way that some of them, even to me, I think they play the instrument better than I do. But there's a learning and there's a conversation that we have and a sharing, and it's motivating because it shows you that the music shall never die from generation to generation. So even just knowing that you can have a slight input into the younger generation, that's an achievement. And yeah, it's a great thing because that's the longevity of music, the lifestyle, constantly going from generation to generation. And yeah, being a person who's doing it from young, that was the greatest thing, was to have elders and still have elders that will look up to, that can encourage us.
It's amazing that you can be in a kind of an industry or a kind of world where even when someone is like new to it, they've still got so much to kind of bring to the party. If you know what I mean? It's like, I love that. And maybe it's just like the way that as musicians you have to be, not have to be, a lot of people seem to be very open and empathetic to a scenario. And do you know what I mean? Like when you're in a group of people, you don't really put yourself in like an order of who's best or worst. You just kind of like, everyone's there and you just try and make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like, obviously sometimes there's moments when things might be a bit tricky, or certain scenarios that with a bit of experience, you've maybe seen them before and you can kind of help guide it slightly differently.
Mm-hmm.
But generally it's like, I love that about working with either people older than me, more experienced, or younger, whatever. It's like you're all in it together and you're all kind of learning and discovering something in that time. And I think that's why it's so exciting. It's
Mm-hmm.
so much fun. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think out of all of the people that I know, you're two of the musicians where when I see you on a project, it genuinely looks like you're having fun, and it genuinely looks like even if it's somebody playing their first show, you're learning from them as well. I remember Toby when you started playing with Tom Odell,
Mm.
and you were just so excited about his songwriting, and I was like, that's amazing. At the time he was kind of a newer artist, and it was just really encouraging to see you, like you'd done quite a bit by that point, and you were just super excited, to be on that project, and so that was. I really like seeing that from you guys. So
I
yeah,
definitely get excited when I hear Jamel's bass lines, that's for sure.
Toby does the same thing, man. It's a conversation.
Oh, beautiful.
so
It's a beautiful thing. I've missed it. I have to admit, I've missed it.
Yeah, man.
Abby has asked a question, so I'll put that on the screen and we can
Cool.
respond to that.
It's exciting.
It's kind of cool. We can respond to stuff.
Oh,
Right. So there we go.
Okay.
How do you become a session musician, and how do you make those initial moves, contacts?
I definitely feel like, if I can go first, Jamal, if that's cool.
Yep.
I definitely feel like for me it was pretty much just down to me saying yes to lots of things, and just being really, like, genuinely, I was interested in doing lots of different things. So when like an offer would come up, I would go for it. I would just give it a try, and sometimes those kind of opportunities on paper wouldn't have led to anything, but maybe like the sound engineer was there. And interestingly, one of the first artists I played for was a guy called Nick Harrison in like 2009, or no, earlier than that. And I remember doing a gig with him at the watershed in Norwich, and I first met
Waterfront.
waterfront. Sorry, waterfront.
That's
And I
right.
remember I still to this day remember meeting Lavar, and you were on monitors, and that was like one of those
Yeah.
amazing chance meetings. And then, you know, down the line we probably bumped into each other again, and you never know what might. And in fact, I think you probably brought me onto some gigs in the future after that. So that was like an event that happened because I wanted to, met someone, and that someone ended up liking what I was doing, thought I was maybe nice,
Hmm.
and brought me on. And then the more time you spend doing that, and the longer you do it, and the longer you can keep doing it and survive doing it, the more people you meet, the more experiences you have, the more opportunities you have. And if you treat those every gig like it's the best gig ever, and you really respect those
That's the
opportunities,
key.
yeah, if you really respect those opportunities, do your best every gig. It's amazing the kind of people you meet and the kind of people that you keep as friends, and those people really, really seem to bring you up and offer you
Hmm.
things. And as well, beautiful community. It's definitely something that doesn't happen. It's not like you can just like go, right, I want to be a session musician. What can I do? And then instantly it happened. You really have to kind of, like I was saying earlier, when I left school, I was developing myself as a person, as a character, finding out what I'm about. And all of that time, I'm taking little gigs here and there, meeting people. So it's like a journey. It's not something you can kind of switch. It's like a slow thing. I think it will happen if you believe it. And also, one last point is that sometimes it's the things that you want to do are sometimes not exactly what maybe your skill set are, and you can be a little bit pulled in a direction that maybe doesn't really resonate with the person that you are. So what I would say is definitely don't try and pick too early what you think you are, and just give things a try. And then you'll realize that there are some things that maybe you don't want to do again, and that's fine. And then you'll start carving out your own career, and then you'll be that person that does that thing that people want, and that's what it's all
Hmm.
about.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. There ain't much I can really add. I totally agree to most of the points when it comes to becoming a session musician. Yeah, one that stands out is really when you are on stage, yeah, play it like it's your best gig ever. You know, put all the effort you can, because that's really where you get to meet people. In my experience, away from, even if you go for a jam, when you go up there, you know, you put in the effort because you catch the eye of someone. When you're on a stage, you don't know who's in the audience, but there's someone that's seen you, and maybe a few months or even a few years later, maybe a few days later, they're reaching out to you, and that's another opportunity. And you play that same one with all your heart, and another one comes, and it just keeps going. So
I
yeah,
think that's definitely in the case of both of you. Uh, I'm not a musician. I'm a sound engineer and I produce records and stuff. But um, I've definitely called both of you up for gigs um, because I liked working with you, and I enjoyed what you were bringing to shows that you were working on or projects that you were playing on or
mm-hmm.
whatever it was. And um, even before I knew either of you very well, um, I knew early on that you would do the job and you'd do it correctly. So yeah, I think as you know, if I was going to pass any advice to people getting into session playing and stuff, is just be as nice as possible to work with. Like, in a way, the part of it is that you want whoever you're working with to come away from it going, they were super great to work with. They were just nice to work with. That was a really easy experience. And they played exactly what was necessary for the track.
I'm interested by what Jamel said about doing like the best that you can do and like doing your best, because when Jamel said that, I knew that because I know him and I know what he's like when he plays. It's like, it's not something that he's pretending to do as well. It's not like you can make, you're not going to go, right, tonight I'm going to play the best and like give it my all. It's like there's like a deeper thing with Jamel where he also loves it. Do you know what I mean? Like, is irrelevant to what kind of band he's playing with or artist. Like, he's found something in his instrument that he loves. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, that's something that you can't really pretend. I think that's an important thing. I think
True.
It's interesting that.
Is there a version of you playing a gig, Jamel, where you're not giving it your all? Because I've not seen it, but I just
let me think.
I don't know if it even exists.
Nah, alright. So there's been gigs where I've been on stage and the artist isn't giving their all, and it can be a bit downhearting to you as a musician. But then, if anything, that's given me more drive to step up and try and get the artist to wake up. So if anything, my bass is gonna get louder, and I'm gonna probably lead it more than you because you're not doing it. So let's go, because the crowd's here and the crowd needs it. So yeah, I probably haven't got a gig that I haven't tried my best. I've made mistakes, but I will try my best.
Yeah. There's kind of there's so many things I want to talk to you guys about.
Thanks for the question, by the way, Abby. Appreciate that.
Yes, Abby, big up.
So when I kind of initially thought about doing this, something I wanted to talk to you about was feel, because I met you in the context as a pairing, as a rhythm section. I met you in the context of playing with the artist Natty, and something that struck me when I first started working with Natty was how particular he was when it came to feel. And it was to a point that I hadn't ever seen, especially from a singer. I've worked with a couple of MDs that are that way and a couple of producers that are that way in the studio. But seeing him as a singer lead a band in that way was really inspiring. So yeah, it made me think about the feel in different genres of music and how they work. And yeah, so you're people that I would like to talk to about that. And it was an education, especially in I didn't really grow up around reggae. And so for a lot of people, reggae seems like quite a simple music. And the more and more time I've spent around it over the last decade, I've come to really get how nuanced it is. And it's all about rhythm and feel. So yeah, I was just
It is a beautiful thing.
It would be interesting to hear your thoughts on those, you know.
Well, I feel like if we're going to start by talking about reggae and feel within the context of reggae, I shouldn't start that. But
oh, but you're good, man.
But what I would say is that I definitely learned a hell of a lot from playing with Natty and playing with Jamel, especially. And like, I've probably got my own little kind of viewpoint from it. But I reckon Jamel should start this one. Go on, Jamel.
Okay. For me, feel is everything for me. Mainly because, as I said earlier on, I didn't learn the traditional way of learning the instrument. So I probably learned to play feel before I even knew what a note was. Because feel was me trying to reproduce exactly what my ears is hearing and create that same feeling. And once I even got to learn music, I realized that feel can't be scored. Notes can be scored, the rhythm can be scored, patterns can be scored, but that feel, that groove, that breath that comes between the notes, that short and that length, it can't be scored. It's only something that you can feel. Literally. So I found that for every song, there's a different dance. It might be a slight thing, but that's how I play my bass. For every song, there's a dance, and that rhythm is what makes, because my fingers are dancing. When your fingers are playing a bass line, your fingers are dancing on a string. And if your fingers trip over, the bass line trips over. So you got to stay in that rhythm. And in order for the fingers to stay in that rhythm, for me, my whole body's got to be in it. So it's that swing. And once I get into that swing, I got to hold it. And if the feel slightly changes into a different groove and it steps up more, then I got to join you in that step up more. But either way, there's, my whole thing is the whole body plays. It's not just the fingers, my whole body's playing the instrument. And that's how we get that feel across. And then working with a drummer that also appreciates feel, that's when you start having fun, you know? So my getting introduced to playing music with Natty, the first drummer I played with Natty is actually Toby, in that sense there, because when I first even saw Natty playing, I saw Toby playing the drums. And it was amazing for me because playing for Natty was the first time I ever played a session where one song had like 3, 4, 5 different feels.
Yeah, I literally just wrote that down. It is exactly that. Go on, Jamel.
So it's the first time ever. So for me, it was like, whoa, this was a new style, because usually I've been playing sessions for like 15 years before that. And every song was the song. It was either had a bridge, a little middle A maybe, but it was the song, that was the tune. But then I come to Natty and it was like, okay, this part's got this feel, but this part we're going to bring the tempo up here. And this part is going to be a bit more ska. And this part is going to have a bit of African influence. And it was a nice challenge because it was now learning new feels. So appreciating the inputs from other genres and me trying to interpret it with that same tone. Yeah, and yeah. Feel, I think, for me, feel is more important than even the notes and knowing the pretty scales and so forth for me. Because once I get that feeling and I can make you feel that feeling, we're connected. You know?
It's kind of interesting. Before I was an engineer and stuff, I was actually a bass player. And I do remember being on stage and being aware that the bass was what made people move. And so there was kind of an intrinsic kind of link between the feel that you play on a bass and dancing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of it's funny that you say that, because I've definitely felt that firsthand, that there's definitely a link to dancing. And it makes me think about all the different cultures in the world that have particular dances to different types of music and different songs within their culture, that maybe we don't necessarily have in the UK in the same way now. Yeah, that's not really a question. It's just my brain going.
It's interesting what Jamel was saying. I agree. I loved hearing what he was saying there, and I really resonate with a lot of that. But what seems to be interesting, the way that it's kind of like just adding on to what Jamel and you guys were saying, but it's like everyone's different characteristics of being a human and a person. When people are in the same group or in the same room, in the same mindset, the same energy, the same, that kind of flow state thing. It's like it's the combination of all of those different humans that create a feel as well. Because Jamel, if Jamel's doing something and he's putting his feel on it, I mean, he could literally make people dance with it with just his bass, but for the most part, he would be making people dance because it's the conversation between what the drums are doing and the bass, and then in the style of reggae, then you've got like all of those different characteristics and humans, but also their different rhythm and how they're placing that rhythm within the context of that song. So like you've got like in the case of Natty, you might have like a keyboard player playing like more of a faster tempo, more of a faster subdivision. That's kind of people can lean on that little part of the rhythm, and then you've got maybe the hi-hat that's kind of even faster, and then you've got the kick and the snare that are kind of dominating and marking certain parts of that beat, and then you've got Jamel just like wiggling around everywhere on the bottom and just giving all of those extra subdivisions and frequencies. And then you've got guitar, playing like a arpeggio or maybe a skank or a chop. Do you know what I mean? All of those things. It's the arrangement of how they fit, but it's also the way that people's intentions play those rhythms and how they play it together. And I think that's kind of what feel is to me, is like everyone's personality and how they're trying to be in tune with other people. And I think if you're in tune with other people and you're listening and you're offering what you've got to say, which is in my case kicks and snares and hi-hats, but if you're doing that in a way that is like you're like being confident and 100% in the way that you're putting that down, but you're also not listening to everyone else, you're kind of constantly adapting, and there's conversations happening on all levels. And why I love reggae and why I've learned to love it, because I didn't, like you, Lavar, I didn't really hear a lot about it for a while. This is not how I grew up, but I love it because it's such a great representation of not only different fields working together in subdivisions, but it's also, in my opinion, like this is perfect, the way that all of the frequencies, it's not like it's got all of the rhythm, but it's also got all of the frequencies, and it's all in its place, and there's room for everyone, and it's like a circle of all the right things. It's beautiful. But yeah, playing with Natty was particularly difficult because you can't just suddenly relax into one genre or one feel. Like, the verse might be like breakbeat, and like Jamel might have to be quite on top of the beat and quite pushy or definitive, but then in the chorus it might go half time, and then Jamel might really have to slow down, like draw it back and go lazy behind the beat, and then you might have some stabs or whatever that have to be on point, and then you've got like a I don't know, it's that it was literally section by section would change. You can't like you can't relax. You've got to really,
it's not a settling session.
Yeah, but it was, when it worked, it was a beautiful thing, and yeah, I learned a hell of a lot, and I think Natty is a great example of a vocalist, actually, but also I do think he's a producer, and that's what he thinks about too, and an engineer. But when you work with a vocalist, the way that they listen to music, you can't not listen to them, because they're in a space that really kind of can be sure if things aren't feeling right, and if they're going to stand at the front of the stage and let a whole crowd of people know them, say their message or tell a story, or through a song, and if something's bugging them, they're not going to be able to fully release into that mindset. So I think when a vocalist is at the front and they say, look, something doesn't feel right, like, can we just work on this rhythm? And in Natty's case, it would be like literally like an open hi-hat on the third, on the and of three needs to be on the and of 4 so that he can feel that certain upbeat in that place, so that he could then say something.
Detailed.
And then the detailing, but he just needed a huge amount of detail so that he could feel comfortable saying his message. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
But he could articulate it in a really good way. And obviously for him, he was amongst people like me and Jamel, who are from very different places and have different musical background, and he was there like pulling on all of these people's experiences and getting this one sound. It was brilliant to see.
I would
And to
actually say, for anybody that's watching this that has never heard any of Natty's material, there's a live version of a song called I'm Alive. Um I think it's like some sort of session version of it. That I think is a good example of this. It has a lot of different feels, and everybody's got space to be super creative. And it's a lot of different ideas being brought together to sound not only cohesive but really simple, and to convey a simple message, and I remember that being a song that when we were touring and stuff, yeah, hearing that song every day kind of changed how I felt about a lot of things, and just taking the time to give thanks for actually just being alive,
it's
and
always
being
the
able
simple ones.
to work with you guys. So yeah, as an example, anybody that's watching this that wants a place to start, yeah, I'm Alive. That would.
Yeah, very good song selection. Good.
But I think like talking about feel a bit more, like Jamel obviously is a bass player and doesn't just play with me, so he plays with lots of other drummers. And it would be interesting to hear what you think, Jamel, of like the difference between drummers and how you fit with those different personalities and the way that they play. Because I think that will probably help people think about feel as well.
Yeah, it is amazing because every drummer, every person is an individual. So I haven't seen a human being that plays exactly the same on any instrument, which is the amazing thing about playing music with people. There's a lot of us that play very similar and we can do similar things, and because we've researched in similar areas, we can approach things in that similar way. But yeah, I mean, for me, starting off in that whole reggae music industry, it was very much based upon the foundation that was set from the elders. So a lot of people like Styles Scott being the drummer from a band called the Roots Radix, who kind of ruled, you could say, within reggae music. He kind of ruled the whole of the 80s because that sound and that approach to reggae music was the sound, and he was the individual that could produce that feel, just like Sly and Robbie before them. And then you have Bob Marley's drum and bass section, Carlton and Family Man. And it was each of them have their own flavor. None of them sound like each other. Similar at times, but everyone has their own flavor. And then me now coming as a session musician and playing with various different reggae musicians. Sometimes you get called for a session, and now it's like the first thing you have to ask as the bass player is who's playing drums. Before you even ask about anyone else, you want to know who's playing drums, because you want to know it's like almost what am I getting into now, because we need to know that we can communicate, we can vibe, because as a session musician, you need to be open. You need to be open to can take criticism, open to can reason, because you're going to meet someone new maybe for the first time. And yeah, we're both going to have to get into this vibe. So you're going to give me a bit of advice. I'm going to give you a little pointer here and there, and we're going to make it happen. And so like I was playing with loads of reggae drummers, from Otis being my main drummer in the Rasites, because we kind of grew together. So me and Otis, our whole vibes were based more upon Sly and Robbie and that whole Black Uhuru, Peter Tosh kind of approach to reggae, which was very hard and militant. And we like that kind of step-in drums. And then right up to the time when we've come to play with Natty now and meeting musicians that play various different genres of music, that's a great learning again now, because I'm getting to introduce what I've learned from reggae and kind of merge it with these different feels. And you got a man like Toby who kind of turns the drum into everything. Like, so I don't think there's a part of the drum that Toby can't make a sound out of. You know what I'm saying? So it weren't just the normal playing just the toms and go for it. Like everything, there's a whole creativity that's taking place, which is amazing. That makes me start thinking, wow, what kind of sound can I make out of the bass now? So it takes me away from just the traditional way, and it's a new learning. And then there's a new teaching, is like a new upliftment. Bing! Yeah, here we go now. You know, yes, like something clicked, and now we made it's like an achievement. So we take it to a next level. Yeah, so meeting new musicians, hearing new drummers all the time, it's a great thing. You find that in certain genres, there are some people that specialize in certain things. Like, for example, people will call me when they're looking for more of a reggae influence, even if it's not reggae music they're playing, but they wanted that reggae approach on the bass. So they will say, me being a person that specializes in reggae, you know, if they were looking for more a funk or someone to play a lot of slap bass, maybe they wouldn't call me because that's not my forte, you know, but I'll give it a go, but that's not where I specialize. But if you wanted that reggae approach and that kind of feel and groove that's going to keep you rocking, I'm there all day. Yeah.
Wicked, man.
I've definitely been involved in a few sessions where people have said, yeah, we need this to have a little bit more of a reggae feel. And it's like, yep, cool. I know the guy.
True. Thank you for that.
We kind of have to start thinking about wrapping up. So I've got a few questions that are kind of not shorter questions, but questions that everybody's answered. So music that's been inspirational to you. So first album that you bought with your own money, the last album that you remember buying, and an album that you'll always play.
Go on, Tobes.
So it's first. My memory's terrible. Is it? First one I bought. I think the first one I can remember that I bought was either Ronnie Size Represents New Forms.
That's a great album.
Or it was, I think, Reef Replenish. I think was that the album?
Yeah, I
The first
remember.
one. No. What was the first one? Naked. Oh
Um,
my god, I can't remember.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Reef Replenish. That's right.
remember seeing them in 1994 or 1995 at Boardmasters at Fistral Beach in Cornwall. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was. I think that maybe it was Reef because it was on tape. It was on cassette. So I think that was my first album. And like, to be honest, that band probably is some of the reason why I'm why I'm a drummer, because my cousin, I'll try and make it snappy. My cousin was engaged to the bass player Reef, and I remember on the way that we went to meet him for Christmas or something for the first time. I think we bought this tape and listened to it on the car on the way up, and literally it just blew my mind. It was such an amazing album. And then subsequently we went to a few gigs, and I was like, you know, a small young like 12-year-old or something at like Portsmouth Pyramids or Southampton Guildhall, watching this wicked band rock out, and then getting to meet them afterwards. And Dominic, the drummer, actually let me sit on his kit and gave me a pair of sticks once. And yeah, that was amazing. And actually it was really nice. I ended up recording about like 15 years later with the Noisettes in Peter Gabriel's studio in Box.
Real
World. And he was actually there. And at that studio, you all stopped for lunch. And we were like, I was queuing up for lunch, and he was there. And I was like, mate, I had to go up to him. I was like, mate, probably the reason why I'm here in this queue is because of you. So thanks very much for that. It was amazing to meet him. That was amazing. The first one. The one that I always play, probably almost every day, is an album called Music for 18 Musicians by Steve Reich, and it's like a very weird kind of hour piece of music. It's kind of like a contemporary orchestral piece, I guess. But
I've actually been there when you've played that. So yeah.
I pretty much listen to it before every gig because it kind of gets my head in a really focused mindset. I just love the piece of music. I've sat at the front of the Royal Festival Hall. My brother bought me a ticket. I've seen it live. It's the most amazing piece of music, and I listen to that a lot. I think that's probably my most favorite and most played piece of music. And if you haven't heard it, you should definitely check it out. Steve Reich, I think it's Reich, music for 18 musicians, and it will send you in a trance. It's beautiful.
Okay.
What's the last album you remember buying? That's tough now, isn't it?
I think probably a Radiohead album.
Yeah.
To be honest, maybe Moonshaped Pool or something, possibly. Can't remember.
Yeah. I remember buying that on white vinyl. Looks great.
What about you, Jamal?
What was the
Right.
first question?
First album you remember buying with your own money?
First, I remember buying my own money. I was about 13 years old, and I went to Regal Records, and I bought an album called Garnet Silk Gold. Now, Garnet Silk is like, to me, is like the next best thing to ever touch reggae music since Bob Marley. Spiritually and everything, he kind of, represented, and he had a special voice that I've never heard nothing like it before in my life. And before hearing Garnet Silk, I wasn't even interested in singing, to be fair. I was just only interested in being more rapping and just playing instruments. But when I heard Garnet Silk, I wanted to discover the voice. And so I bought Garnet Silk Gold. Yeah, still got it now, vinyl. Jetstar, it was like a compilation, Jetstar Garnet Silk Gold. Yeah, that was the first one I spent money on.
Last album you remember buying?
Last album I remember buying. Okay, well, physical, or do you mean digital, or just in general?
Just in general.
The last album I bought would have been Stony Hill, Damian Marley. Yeah. Bought it on iTunes. Yeah.
And an album that you will always play?
A group called the Viceroys, which is like 4 elders from Jamaica. They are reigned mainly in the 80s. They got an album called Can't Stop Us Now. Like 3 elders, vocal harmonies on point. The lead vocalist, his voice sounds like silk. Yeah. And
You've played me this before as well, actually.
I'm sure I have. Yeah. Yeah, the Viceroys.
I remember sitting in a tour bus in Bristol and you playing that. With Marley Drummond.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You
know, when you hear some singers and you wish you could sing like that. Yeah, that guy's got that kind of vibe for me.
I think that was a conversation about best ever live performances. And people just drawing for different tracks, and I know that was a group that you definitely drew for.
For sure. Yeah, and the musicians
it's kind of weird. These chats, like, I feel like I would have these chats anyways. It's kind of fun doing them online so people can kind of see and, you know, comment and stuff.
Introduce into the world.
Yeah, we've had some comments from people saying that they're going to listen to the albums that you've suggested, so that's cool. So moving on, we need to the sort of the inevitable kind of the last 18 months to 2 years has actually been pretty mad. But what from that time do you think you're actually going to keep in your life? Like, there's quite a few changes that I made that I'm definitely keeping. Yeah, a lot of things changed, not all bad.
Well, the first thing that came to mind was a house, because I guess that's for the last however long me and my brother have been doing up a house, and I guess I'm going to keep that for a little while, maybe not forever, but but that's the reality of what's been going on with a musician's career. You know, like I went down the kind of route of trying to buy a house with my brother and doing it up, and that's kind of, I probably wouldn't have done that because of COVID, but I also wouldn't have done that if I was still a busy musician, because I wouldn't have had the time to do it. So I think the things that, and I learned a lot of things whilst doing that project with my brother. And like, I think one of those things was just being in the moment. And I mean, I felt like I found that with music, but I've been trying to find, I've felt like doing up the house, I learned new ways of concentration and doing maybe menial tasks for a long time and doing it in a way that is rewarding, and just getting into that moment is a beautiful thing.
I
And
saw
time,
photos of you doing wooden floors.
yeah, we did a lot of things, but yeah, I think like just being aware of awareness and more awareness and more being a part of the now. I think that's something that I've developed over that period of time more than ever, and I think it's something that's really important for me, just to be aware and to be able to get into that zone and that flow that I've found with music easily, but in normal life I found less easily. So yeah, I'd say that being in the now.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Totally agreed. Yeah. Yeah. The last 18 months, it's been a life-changing process as a musician. So even I've had to find alternative
Um,
in order to maintain financial stability, which was a good thing as well, because having stability instead of just being, sometimes as a musician, you can go through up seasons and down seasons. And since getting into alternative works, I've had more of a stable, steady flow with music as a bonus on top of it. So thankful for that. Yeah, if Corona never happened, maybe I wouldn't have considered going down these other avenues and looking at other areas as well. Also musically, having the time to focus on my own projects, my own production, my own songs, my own goals, giving me a chance to even have even more belief in what I can do, and not be afraid to prioritize my work over even session work, knowing that it's worthwhile. So yeah, that was something that I've learned as well, because session work is great, but I found that as an individual that's trying to set goals for oneself, it's very easy to be doing everyone else's work and not your own. So it's finding that balance and not being afraid to address that balance.
I'd second that as well. Good point. I think
Cool.
I found that too.
Last question. What excites you for the rest of the year? What's coming up?
More vaccines.
That's a topic for a whole other chat.
Yeah. For the rest of the year, all possibilities. I mean, to be fair, for me, sorry to butt in like this, but I mean, yeah, since the last few months, seeing venues open back up, I've managed to be on the road a few times this year. It's been a nice feeling to be back on stage. It's been nice to go to certain festivals that I've been to this year and see fellow musicians backstage, and be in what we used to know to be a familiar feeling. It was a really nice thing, and I'm looking forward to more of that feeling. I'm looking forward to seeing more musicians out there expressing themselves without feeling that they're breaking the law. So yeah, let's have more musical expressions. Freely.
Yeah, big time. I agree with that. 100%.
So yeah, to wrap up, where can people find you online? And yeah, have you got any projects or anything that you're working on that you wanna mention or plug?
I guess in the lockdown, well, a few years, what is it, 2 years basically. I kind of there was a few projects that I guess were born out of that. One of them was a project called Really Small Shorts, and that's basically me and another bass player actually, where we're basically just giving ourselves restrictions, lots of restrictions, where we'd only have five elements per song, and the songs are usually about 1.5 minutes. It's very, it kind of, the whole thing was born from the fact that we like Jay Dilla, so they're kind of definitely experimental, quite often groove based hip hop kind of stuff. But equally, it's not just hip hop; it's like different worlds of expression, basically art expression. And the fact that we gave ourselves quite a strong intention and restriction at the forefront, it's been a really interesting project. And a lot of the times, we wanted to, when we came up with a part or an idea, before we'd even thought about whether it was a good take, we would keep it. So the whole point was that it was like being able to being able to trust yourself and just let yourself be that moment and just let it be. Rather than like when you're doing a lot of recording and making a lot of music, you kind of come up with it and then you try and make it what you think it should be. But before we even got to that mindset, it was recorded and we'd loop it or something. So that was one thing. So we've got volume 1 and volume 2 out. Both of those were recorded, mixed by myself and with a few collaborators. And that was really fun and a really interesting project. I guess another thing was from what Jamel just said. I'll just get to this quickly, but me and my brother do a lot of music together, and we've just released a song that it was actually a kind of from that lockdown period of time where it was literally me in a room and I just let out this thing and then mixed it in the space of maybe 4 hours or 5 hours, and then we just put it out last week, and it literally hasn't changed since then. So it's a really interesting experiment of letting something go and releasing something when it's was such an early idea, and being able to kind of do that was quite scary. But my brother was very encouraging and pushed me to kind of say, you know, that was a thing, and to try and dive into that production again and make it like better. Like why would you want to do that? So that's a band called Cooling Towers, and the song is called Typical, huh? And yeah, it's on all the platforms and things. But that was quite an interesting experiment for me, just to do this thing and put it out and just let it go, move on. So yeah, there are 2 little things I've done. But yeah, check me out on Instagram. My name Toby Couling, spelled Couling. Thank you, Jamel.
Cool.
Yo, yeah. Been working on a lot of production. I've got quite a few releases planned to come forward. Last year I released a project called Standing on the Peak Volume 1, which is a compilation of various songs that I produced from various artists, and some of them I've voiced myself as well. Planning for Volume 2 coming before Christmas. Also got my solo album that I've been working on, that's in completion, so I feel that's going to be a next year release. Yeah, also my band, the Rassites, so our band, the Rassites, we are currently organizing and getting prepared to record new material. We just performed on stage 2 weeks ago. Since 6 years we hadn't performed together, so it's like a reunion. This year we're kind of celebrating 20 years since our first release. So
That's
yeah,
so exciting.
Wicked.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
best vibe. So yeah.
Where is that gig?
Find
Where
me.
is that gig?
Oh no, that gig that happened was at the City Splash Festival, which was 2 weeks ago now. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it was a great festival, well attended, over in Beckenham, South London side. Loads of people, good atmosphere, nice weather. Yeah. So yeah, keep an eye out for us. Look out for Rassites on Facebook, Instagram. Check me out, Talliss Ites, Facebook, Instagram. Yeah. I'm not too into the other ones, but yeah, Facebook and Instagram, I'm there. So follow up and stay connected.
Cool. Well, thanks for saying yes to doing this, and yeah, I look forward to recording you, mixing you, or
Wicked.
just seeing you all as humans and drinking hot drinks with you.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a pleasure to speak with you guys.
All
As
good.
always.
Yeah, man.
I'm
Nice
gonna,
to catch up with you, man.
Yeah,
We're
perfect.
reasoning.
Time for a lem sip, I think, and try and get well again. But I will see you all soon.
Get well soon, man.
Nice
care.
one.
Bye.
Bless.